What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Between Two Jerseys. This is going to be episode number 2. If you're new here, I'm Stewart, and every week I come out with one of these videos. I eventually want to start doing it once or twice a week, but for now we're at once a week, and it's just me going over my scattered thoughts on sports for this week. I go over football, basketball, and a little bit of UFC. I haven't talked about UFC on this show yet, but today got some interesting shit for you guys coming up. We got NFL football, NCAA football. We got the NBA draft is coming up next week, next Wednesday. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up. And I promised you guys I'll hit the barber before next episode comes out. I gotta be looking clean for these videos. I'm looking a little bit all over the place. Got the Alabama crew neck on. You know at Cheap Maggies they got $10 per a crew neck. I got pretty much the whole SEC. This is my Alabama one. This is not me simping or dick riding Alabama. We got Johnny Manziel in the background. God bless his name. Now, before we get into the steak and potatoes of this episode, and I get in there, just make sure that if at any point you fuck with the video, you fuck with the content, make sure you go down below and subscribe and leave a like. Let's go. So I'm recording this on Monday night. Last night we had the Sunday Night Football game, and that's always where I love to kind of start these things out with. And last night it was just probably the shittiest game I've ever sat down and watched on Sunday Night Football. It was an exciting matchup, Buccaneers versus Saints. The Buccaneers were somehow -3.5 favorites. Ended up being 38-3. Saints beat the Bucs. I had the game off by halftime. I literally invited the boys over. We turned the studio into a nice little man cave when I'm not recording the videos for you guys. And we were hanging out, and by halftime, the game was shut off, and we were just, at that point, we didn't have shit to do. We wanted to sit down and watch this game, and they just didn't pull through. We ended up fucking watching, Impractical Joker's funny moments on YouTube. It was a sad, sad night for people that wanted to gather around and watch this fucking game. Now, I will say, Drew Brees looked great in this game. Michael Thomas, I guess he does move the needle in a way, you know what I mean? Michael Thomas does matter for the Saints because the Saints didn't look that great all season. He comes in, they beat the fuck out of the Buccaneers. Tom Brady melts down, but I'm really not too worried for the Buccaneers going forward. I think the Saints emerge as a title contender before they really weren't, and I think that's the kind of the positive spin that we can take on this game. I feel like right now this is probably the most competitive NFL season I can remember in recent memory. We have the Buccaneers who looked like straight up title contenders. They get beaten the fuck out of by the Saints. Now the Saints look like title contenders. They started out 2-2, and those were 2 losses against the Raiders and the Packers. The Packers are good, but the Raiders are kind of suspect. And then they win by an average margin of 3.75 across their next 4 games with 2 overtime wins. The record of the teams that they played in those 4 games are 13-21. Those were teams like the Panthers, the Bears, the Chargers. They weren't good teams, and they were barely sneaking by. That's what people were kind of sleeping on the Saints coming into this game. But I guess now they have Michael Thomas, and this whole offense is rejuvenated. You know what I mean? Michael Thomas is in there. Demands more help from the secondary. They torched a elite Buccaneers defense team. I thought Drew Brees wasn't that great for the beginning part of the season, but he had a great game last night. And then you have Taysom Hill, who Sean Payton just fucking brings him on whenever he gets bored. Does a little Tim Tebow offense. He went crazy. It was just a great showing for the Saints, and I think that put them on the map as contenders. Because before that, they were barely squeaking by bad teams. They were going into overtime against bad teams. It just wasn't. Their season just wasn't pretty up until this point. This is their first signature win, and it comes when they have Michael Thomas back. And I think that speaks to how important Michael Thomas is for that team. If I'm talking to somebody and you know about football and I know about football, the key password to get into that club when you hit him with the what's the password? It's that that Michael Thomas is an elite top 3 wide receiver, and that he doesn't just cheese slants. That's not possible in the NFL. You can't just cheese slants in the NFL, or else guys like Danny Amendola would be elite. Now on the flip side, we have the Buccaneers, and honestly, when we're looking out to the end of the season, you know what I mean? Once we're into the playoffs, I'm not really too worried about the Buccaneers. I think Tom Brady just had a down game. Then you have Antonio Brown coming into that receiver room with Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronkowski, Brady. It's just a stacked wide receiver room. Fournette's going to get better. That defense is already solid. So I'm really not too worried. I think it was just they shit their pants on national television. I still really believe in them after that. When they rolled into, I think that game might have been at home. But when they played the Packers, they won 38-10. And the Packers were rolling at that time. They beat the fuck out of them. So I'm not really too concerned about their Super Bowl odds or anything like that. It just, if they beat the Saints, they emerge as a top. Pretty much, if the Buccaneers do to the Saints what the Saints did to the Buccaneers, they're probably at the top of that list with the Steelers and the Chiefs as like main title contenders. There's not even like a top team. Like last year was the Ravens. The Ravens were going to win it all last year. Everybody looked at that. But this year it's super deep. And I think that this weekend is what really cemented that there's a good like 6 to 10 teams that can fight for a Super Bowl. And I think that's what happened this weekend in Buffalo as well. You had Buffalo, they looked like a clear contender in those first 4 games. They looked really good, dropping 30 points on everybody. Then they have 2 bad losses against the Titans and the Chiefs, and that's when everybody's kind of off them. And then the next 2 games, they kind of sleep through a win against the Jets. The Jets covered the spread for the first time in that game when the Bills won 18-10 in that game. And then they barely beat the Patriots 24-21. They need Cam Newton to fumble in the last play of drive to beat them. It just wasn't the same Bills we saw in those first 4 games when they were really rolling. Josh Allen was like an MVP type candidate in those games. And they haven't dropped 30 since those first 4 weeks. Then they come in this week and they just hang their nuts on Russell Wilson and those boys. Russell Wilson, main candidate for MVP. Everything is rolling for that Seahawks team. Everything besides losing by 3 points on that like Sunday Night Football game against the Cardinals. Everything was going right for them. They roll into Buffalo and the Bills just like Josh Allen throwing 4 touchdowns on 31 of 38 passes for 414 yards is insane. I know the Seahawks are a whatever defense, even though they did have Jamal Adams. You have to remember that. They did have Jamal Adams, and the Bills only have so many receiving talent. They just have Diggs and John Brown, and they torch that defense. Like everybody has been torching it, but I think it means a lot for the Bills to be at home against a team that's probably the number 1 contender in the West, in the NFC right now. Outside, if we were to zoom back a week, the Bills, they beat them 44-37. I think it just shows that the Giants in the NFL right now aren't bulletproof. The Seahawks are a team that were probably the favorites to win the NFC. They beat them, and it wasn't really a close game at any point in time. It was just garbage time from Russell Wilson. I know Russell Wilson had 4 turnovers. It's how you're gonna have to beat him. They only won by about 7 points, and Russell Wilson had 4 turnovers. So that's how you beat them. The Bills played great defense. Now with that, the Seahawks, they had 1 bad game. They're 1-2 in their last 3 games, but as we know, Russell Wilson, he's been cooking. He's been playing like crazy. They're going to still contend for that NFC spot in the Super Bowl. So now you have Seahawks are still good, Saints are still good, Buccaneers are still good, the Bills are good. And then the top teams, the Steelers and the Chiefs, who are basically the 1 and 2 for Super Bowl favorites, they showed this week that they're not untouchable. You had the Chiefs, they only beat the Panthers 33-31 in a game where Mahomes threw 4 touchdowns. They only squeaked by the Panthers, who are 3-6 by 2 points, and they were at home. They were at Arrowhead, and it just shows that nobody is safe, man. But that Panthers team, super interesting. You got Joe Brady at OC. He came from LSU. He was the LSU OC, rejuvenated that offense, comes to the Panthers. They're not a super high-scoring offense, but he gets creative, and I love what I see out of him because they're playing super close games against people. You're not going to play against the Panthers. It's not going to be an easy win against the Panthers. Joe Brady has been he's been getting creative with Curtis Samuel, McCaffrey. He's having them run Texas routes out of the backfield. He's having a field day with them, and he's making the most out of Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater, big dick Teddy Bridgewater, he does his thing, but he's not a guy that's going to torch you downfield. He's not going to run that air raid spread type offense on you. He's like an Alex Smith kind of guy. He's not going to kill you over the top. He is kind of a game manager, but that's what the media is calling him. But Joe Brady said, "Fuck all that. We're gonna run that same exact spread attack that we ran at LSU." And he gets creative, and he made the most out of Teddy Bridgewater. They almost beat the Chiefs on the last drive of the game. They drove down. They were only down 2 points. The clock just wasn't on their side. If it wasn't for the clock, they would have drove down, kicked a field goal on them 1 by 1 point. But it was just like timeouts, time management, all that. But I say all that to say, the Panthers are great. Joe Brady's great. I want Joe Brady to be the head coach for the Jets. That's for another time. But the Chiefs, they're not unbeatable. They've been beaten by the Raiders. They've had close calls against the Chargers too. They had a close call against the Panthers. They're not unbeatable. They all have chinks in their armor. And then the last team that we look at this week is going to be the Steelers. And then that was just a shit show. You had Juju and Chase Claypool. They pull up to the game. And I know you guys, I follow both of them on TikTok. And they're literally just messing around. They're just goofing in the fucking, in the pregame warm-ups. They're stretching around, catching footballs. No one's really they're like, oh, we're going to beat the fuck out of the Cowboys. And we know that they're going to, and it's not even a knock that they're not in their game, because like they're football players. That's their profession. If they want to fuck around during the pregame, I don't give a shit. But they come out there, and it was not an easy task to put away the Cowboys, who had their 3rd string quarterback, who's a 6th-round pick out of SMU. And it was the first time that Dallas covered the spread all season. They were plus 14.5, and the Steelers only won by 5, and their only lead was with a minute 57 left. So it was a close game. It was one that they could have easily left Dallas Cowboys Stadium with an L. That would have been such a shitty way to end that undefeated season. But the whole point of this beginning segment is that there's 8 legit title contenders right now. You have the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Saints, the Packers, Seahawks, Ravens, Bucks, and Bills. Every single one of those teams have their flaws. You have the Bills, Bucks, we know why they have their flaws. The Ravens lost to the Steelers. They lose in big games, win all the ones they're supposed to. Then you have the Seahawks, they've lost. Packers lost against the Buccaneers. Saints haven't looked great until literally last night. And then the Steelers are winning close games against the Cowboys. And then the Chiefs have had their own slip up against the Raiders. They've had close calls against the Panthers and the Chargers, both teams under 500. So these are 8 title contenders, and none of them are bulletproof. No chink in their armor. As much as you want to say the Steelers are undefeated, I wouldn't even call them the unanimously best team in the league. They just won all the games they're supposed to win, and they won a good matchup against the Ravens. And this is 8 title contenders in a year without the Patriots. So this is probably the most interesting. Just enjoy it, fellas. We just had quarantine. We had 6 months with no sports. This is probably the most fun football season I can remember in terms of who's going to win a Super Bowl. Because right now, if you put a gun to my head and ask me who's going to win a Super Bowl, I would obviously say Chiefs, but it's not as sure as a bet as we thought the Ravens were. Even though the Ravens got fucked up in the playoffs, the Ravens were this clear number 1 team, and it felt like maybe the Seahawks were for a little bit. Now the Steelers are, the Chiefs were in the beginning of the season. It's a carousel right now, and that's the best thing for football. We have 8 top teams that if they won a Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked at all. It creates this March Madness type situation for the playoffs because it's just going to be whatever team's the hottest, whoever's rolling on that win streak, whoever's coming into the playoffs with the hot hand. That's what you had last year with the Titans. The Titans are a Super Bowl contender too. If they did what they did last year, where they roll into the playoffs as this powerhouse team, just fucking Mike Vrabel on the sideline holding his dick, dude. When they beat the Patriots in the playoffs, they're just rolling. Beat the Ravens in the playoffs behind Derrick Henry. There's gonna be a team that emerges like that, like the Titans. It could even be the Titans again because we know how Derrick Henry gets in the winter. But it's gonna be this March Madness kind of thing where the hot hand goes crazy. And I think a team right now that has the hot hand are the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Minnesota Vikings are a sneaky playoff team. They kind of got the hot hand themselves right now. They're 1-5 heading into week 7, and now coming off of the bye, they're 3-5. And when you have this expanded playoffs, people forget about this. During COVID, during quarantine, they were talking about the player bargaining agreement or whatever. Now there's 14 playoff teams. 3-5, maybe they climb to 5-5, 6-5. They can squeeze into the playoffs with an 8-8, 9-7 record pretty fucking easily. Now the reason that they're winning all these games, or the reason that they won the last 2, is 100% Dalvin Cook. And the way the Vikings have built this team is completely against how I would build my team. If I'm building a team, I'm building a team like the Chiefs. I'm getting my stud young running quarterback. Then I'm building around him. I'm building around my Patrick Mahomes, my Justin Herbert, my Joe Burrow. I'm putting all the assets into wide receivers, tight ends, pass catchers, offensive tackles, edge. And then on defense, I'm going with that edge rusher. I'm going with the corner, but I'm getting like 1 or 2 pieces. I want a middle-of-the-road defense that rushes the passer and guards the opposing receivers, and that's it. But they built it completely different over there in Minnesota. You got Kirk Cousins, who's like a game manager, free agent QB. Not somebody I'd build around. Kirk Cousins, he's funny, he's a meme, he's a cool guy. But in terms of on-the-field football, he's like average at best at quarterback. And honestly, the Vikings' game plan is almost to have Kirk Cousins throw the ball as little as possible, which to me is just not... In the NFL, you want to pass the ball, you want to air it the fuck out, go crazy, get passing touchdowns. Like how the Seahawks are letting Russ cook. They're trying to get away from that. The Vikings are kind of leaning in that direction, leaning right into that philosophy, and it's working for them right now. Kind of make me eat my words. They have, like I said, they have the average quarterback. They have the elite running back in Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook isn't the same pass catcher that a Christian McCaffrey or Kamara is, but in terms of between the tackles, just being a pure running back, he's as good as anybody. They have a whatever offensive line. But then on defense, it's the complete opposite of what I would do. I would go edge and corner. They have interior defensive line that run stops. They have those athletic linebackers, and they have those nice safeties, Harrison Smith, and the other guy I can't think of right now. I think his last name's Harris. A great interior. It's pretty much like one of those like front 7 defenses where you build from the inside out. And cornerback is pretty much what they're punting this year. And I think that's going to hurt them down the line. Dantzler hasn't been great. Jeff Gladney hasn't been great. There are a lot of rookies on the outside. They let Xavier Rhodes go. Xavier Rhodes looked washed last year. Then he goes to the Colts. He's like a top 5 corner right now. This new play defense, run the balls philosophy has worked really well for the Vikings. They have They've only allowed 22 and 20 points to their opponents in these last 2 games, their lowest 2 opposing point totals of the season, and they beat the Packers in Green Bay, which is a crazy win. It's a crazy win to hang one on Aaron Rodgers right now when he's playing at an MVP level at his crib. So that's crazy. Then they beat Detroit at home, not a great win, but these are convincing wins, and they're pretty much all on the back of Dalvin Cook's dominance these last 2 weeks. He's averaging 28 touches, 239 total scrimmage yards per game, 3 TDs. And it's just, he's just having himself a season, man. And not even just these last 2 weeks. He's now first in the NFL in total TDs among skill position players. He has 13, and that's with missing a game from injury, missing half a game from injury on that during that Seahawks game, and then having a bye. So he's really outperforming what he's supposed to be doing. And then he's also has more 100-yard games than he doesn't have 100-yard games. He has four of his last 7 games. He's rushed for over 100 yards. And right now, in terms of fantasy, there's probably no one I'd rather have than Dalvin Cook. He's averaging 27.6 PPR points per game. He's ranked first in points per game. And then after that, it's McCaffrey. And they're the only 2 averaging over 25 points per game. Then you have CMC, McCaffrey. You have McCaffrey, Kamara, and Cook. And they're the only backs averaging over 20 points per game. Then after that, it's all below 20. So what Dalvin Cook is doing right now on a per-game basis is up there with the elite of the elite. And I think that this gives him a case. He has a real case, even though he's on a 3-5 team as the offensive player of the year right now. With this dominance that he's having, I always like to question myself, who is the best running back in the league? Is it Dalvin Cook right now? And I would pull back on that slightly because, like I said, when I own a team, or not when I own a team, or I mean, maybe eventually the boy will own a team. Ron Stewart, owner of the Jets, will run this team. And at running back, Dalvin Cook's skill set just isn't what I'm looking for. I think Dalvin Cook is a great running back. He's a top 5 running back. For me, I'd still rather McCaffrey and Kamara solely just because of what they do in the passing game and how much I believe in the passing game. But if we're talking pure between the tackles runner, you know, the Ezekiel Elliott's, Nick Chubb's, I say Dalvin Cook is top 2 and he's not 2. As the great Drake would say, he's been. If you just watch his games, he's been a special running back. I haven't seen a running back that looks that special between the tackles since a guy like Adrian Peterson on the Vikings. And I'm just talking about in just that small of a sample size of games. And doing it between the tackles. Christian McCaffrey, he's going to run the ball. He's also going to catch the ball. Same thing with the Kamara. Same thing with all those guys up there. I mean, he's kind of like but Derrick Henry has that different running style. You know what I mean? He just kind of churns it out. He's a straight line bruising type, and that's cool. But Dalvin Cook, he's very finesseful with it. He breaks a lot of tackles. He's hard to take down. He has an, I don't remember the stat on top of my head, but he has like 198 yards after contact in the last 2 weeks or something like that, rushing the ball, which is more than most people even are rushing the ball on the ground to begin with. So that offensive line isn't even really doing him any favors, and he's still going crazy. Now, the one part I would pull back on Dalvin Cook being this transcendent talent, like a elite, like once-in-a-lifetime running back, you know what I mean? Like, he's getting a lot of hype right now, the offensive player of the year. The one thing that you can kind of knock on his game is that he's played very well against teams that are bad against the run. You know, he's had these last 2 games, the Lions and the Packers are the top 2 teams in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, whereas the games where he hasn't gone off against the Colts and the Seahawks one he was hurt, so I'll give him a pass on that. But the Colts one, I think that they're 6th in they're 6th in rushing defensive DVOA, and they're top 10 in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, where it's hard to score against them. In this next week, Dalvin Cook's going up against the Bears, who are top 10 in run defense according to Football Outsiders. So if he hangs another 100 piece on the Bears, then He's matchup proof. He's dropping 100 yards on everybody, and this is how the Vikings are going to win. But I think that if the Bears play in a way where Kirk Cousins has to throw the ball, he only threw the ball I think 14 times either this week or last week. He's throwing the ball under 20 times in both of these last 2 weeks. If Kirk Cousins has to throw the ball more than 20 times because this Bears front 7 gives Dalvin Cook and the offensive line problems, and I think that's where they run into problems. They start losing games. But at 3-5 right now, they get a W against the Bears. Now they're rolling at 4-5. Now they can start trending towards that 500 range. Now, a running back I wish that I could gas up in the same light as Dalvin Cook is Jonathon Taylor. Right now, I know a lot of people are talking about Jonathon Taylor, not even from a fantasy perspective, from a real football perspective. A lot of people saying Jonathon Taylor's a bust. He hasn't been looking good. And I'll be honest with you, I am one of the biggest supporters of Jonathon Taylor. I think that he's a stud. I think he's great. But I will be honest with you, in terms of 2020, this season, it's a bust. It's just the expectations we had for him with Marlon Mack going down, Dalvin Cook assuming that role or Jonathon Taylor assuming that role and becoming a stud and like a top 10 back in the league. That's the expectations we had for him. It just hasn't panned out, and I think it's a mixture of a couple of things. And the first thing is definitely that the Colts front office and the coaches, they just are refusing to just hand over the keys to the Ferrari in Jonathan Taylor. You have an insane running back, and they refuse to give him. They've only given him over 60% snap share once, and they've only given him over 50 carries twice. So they're not giving him a full set of carries, a full set of workload and volume, and they continue to give the ball to guys like Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins. And while in a small sample size they may outperform Jonathan Taylor in a game, you just have to let him get into a groove. You have to let him break down the defense. A lot of what Ezekiel Elliott was so great at, a guy that's very comparable to Jonathan Taylor in terms of as a runner between the tackles, that Ezekiel Elliott breaks down the defense over time. He's going to keep on running into that front seven. He's going to keep on, he's going to just destroy the will of the guys in front of him. Just very, very old school smash mouth type football. As I said, something that I'm not in favor of, but something I know that Colts team is in favor of. They want to build similar to how the Titans are in their same division. I know that they looked at Derrick Henry in the offseason. They drafted Jonathan Taylor. They wanted their own Derrick Henry, and the problem is that they just won't feed him like they feed Derrick Henry. Now, I know Derrick Henry isn't used as the same capacity as a pass catcher as most running backs are, but in terms of between the tackles, Jonathan Taylor can't get the fair share of carries. And now, the thing is, you could point out that he's not producing well enough to earn those carries. That's a fair statement, but you have to understand, I truly feel like Jonathan Taylor right now in 2020 is being set up to fail on the Colts. When he came into that situation, especially from an NBA draft dynasty football perspective, we were thinking this is a great spot. They have a crazy O-line, and they have Phil Rivers, who always throws to the running backs like he did with Austin Eckler, Melvin Gordon over in the Chargers. And those things are, and the Phillip Rivers part is decently true, but here's the thing. Phillip Rivers, he doesn't have a big arm. The Colts lost T.Y. Hilton, they lost Paris Campbell. He's throwing to nobody. He's throwing to Marcus Johnson, Zach Pascal, throwing to fucking Jack Doyle, Trey Bird. It's just a practice. It's like an AFL. It's an XFL level receiver room on that team. It might even be worse than the Jets. I've shit on the Jets receiver room. And what happens is because Phillip Rivers doesn't throw the ball downfield, they don't have any field stretchers. T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell both were field stretchers. As much as they do work in the intermediate and short parts of the field, they have top end speed, take the top off defenses. The problem is defenses aren't scared of anything the Colts have to offer deep. And what that does is it breaks defenders into the box, makes it super hard to run on. Right now, Jonathan Taylor has gone up against an average of 7.4 defenders in the box, which is number 1 in the league. That's not a Colts stat, that's a Jonathan Taylor stat. So that means when Jonathan Taylor's on the field, they're bringing the defense is crowding the line. They're having 7.4 defenders in the box. And what that means is one of two things. They're not scared of Phillip Rivers, like I said. And the second thing is that they respect Jonathan Taylor. When Jonathan Taylor comes up to the line, when it's him in the backfield, they know it's probably going to be a run play, because if he's on, that's the thing. They're conceding their play calling when they bring Jonathan Taylor onto the field. If you only have him on the field on less than 50% of snaps, and in some games he's getting 17 carries on 40% of snaps, that means that when he's on the field, most likely he's getting the handoff. So what you're doing is you're hurting him, because now the defenders are coming in because Phillip Rivers can't throw the ball deep. They're coming in because they know Jonathan Taylor's going to get the ball. And the thing that I'm arguing is that if he's on the field for 85 to 90% of snaps, or even like a 75 to 85% of that time, then he's in the backfield and he's not always getting the carries. He's not always getting the handoff, because when Jonathan Taylor comes in, he's not going to roll out and get a screen pass or a swing pass. They know it's going to be a run up the middle. And the problem is that this Indy O-line hasn't been as advertised. They have Quentin Nelson, who's a sick guy. He's on Barstool all the time in the fucking chains and shit. And he's somebody I thought was really gonna. I thought, it's gonna be his third year. He's been all pro, but now he's going to really be dominant, be a force up front. And I can't speak on if he is, because look, I don't watch the O-line. I'm not an O-line expert. I would say my expertise: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and then everything else kind of flows around that. Objectively speaking, this has been a bottom 5 run blocking unit in 2020. But they were top 12 in 2019. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what has changed since then. I thought they had some good hosses up front. And I think maybe it's just because they're crowding the box on him because they don't have a quarterback that they respect. But I mean, last year they did have Jacoby Brissett. But like I said, Jonathan Taylor, it was as advertised. He comes into this Colts offense. He comes from Wisconsin's O-line, which is always elite. He comes into an elite offensive line in Indianapolis, and it just hasn't been that. And I think that most people don't understand that narrative. They don't understand that Jonathan Taylor's going up against the most stacked box in the league. They don't understand that the run blocking unit in Indy isn't what it was advertised. They don't understand that Phillip Rivers can't throw the ball deep enough to get the safeties and corners to back up, to get the linebackers to back up and respect tight ends, slot receivers. They're crowding the boxes, especially, like I said, especially when Jonathan Taylor comes in and they know it's going to be a handoff to him. It's a problem with the play calling. The play calling hasn't been as creative as it could have been, because if you're bringing in Jonathan Taylor only when he's going to get the ball, then the defense knows what you're going to do. That's the whole point in having an all-purpose back like a McCaffrey or a Dalvin Cook. They're in every single snap. You don't know what's going to happen. You can't just predict the play based on their personnel, and that's the downfall. With all this in mind, 2020, I can completely just forgive Jonathan Taylor for it. To me, Jonathan Taylor is a bulletproof prospect. He has that chef's kiss profile. He just is a perfect prospect. He runs a 4.39. He has the size. He has the speed. He has the pedigree out of Wisconsin. If he had stayed for his senior year, he'd be the all-time rushing leader among college running backs. He is a bulletproof running back, but here's the thing, though. He was only drafted in the second round. To me, he's a top 10, top 15 pick. And let's say he does go top 10, top 15. Then he's afforded the opportunities of a top 10, top 15 pick. And the problem is that us as the media, as the people, as fans, we expect a guy like Jonathan Taylor, somebody that's so hyped up, to be afforded a top 5, top 10 workload like Leonard Fournette was in his rookie year, like Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley in their rookie year. And that's just not what's going to happen. I know Marlon Mack went down, but you have to understand this is a second-round running back. We have to remember what happened with Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Miles Sanders. These are all guys that struggled to meet 1,000 scrimmage yards in their first season. And at the end of the day, Jonathan Taylor's on pace for 1,200 scrimmage yards and 8 touchdowns in his rookie season as a second-round running back. You have to give this guy time. The Colts are going to bring in a better running back. They're going to revamp their O-line. This is a team, they're 5-3, but they really don't play like it. So to come out here and say that Jonathan Taylor's a bust, that in Dynasty Fantasy Football leagues that he should be lowered in the rankings, that he isn't still the 101 in rookie drafts, you have to just don't be on the wrong side of history and write off Jonathan Taylor before his career even gets started. This is a bad situation he's in right now. It will get better. I truly believe by next season they're gonna bring in a better quarterback, whether they draft it, they sign it. They're gonna bring in better receivers. Paris Campbell's gonna get healthy. I love his outlook for 2021 and beyond. Don't take these last 2 weeks where he's been getting outsnapped and outtouched by Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines as a cue that he's the next Trent Richardson I've been hearing. I don't want to hear any of that. Jonathan Taylor's the truth. He's a bulletproof prospect. I'll stick by that unless if he underperforms next year. Then I'll say, hey, he has bad vision, he's slow, whatever. But we've seen the tape on Wisconsin. He's a special player, and I'm just not worried yet. Now, as we move on from Jonathan Taylor, and we just start looking at prospects and the 2021 NFL draft class. The guy that I want to intro to you as my first NCAA football part of this show, I want to be the first one to tell you guys about Zach Wilson. I truly believe that this kid, Zach Wilson, out of BYU, is an elite quarterback prospect. I think he's just getting slept on right now because he plays for BYU. He plays late at night most of the time. He's not even in a conference. BYU, they're independent, like a Navy or Notre Dame before this season. And on Friday night, he rolls up to Boise State's crib, number 21 Boise State. This is pretty much the only game that matters on their schedule. They play against scrubs all season. They just played against Western Kentucky. They come out here, number 21 Boise State, the only ranked team on their schedule. They go to Boise State on the blue turf, at their crib. They open as 3-point favorites, and they go out there in their opportunity to make a statement, and they beat them 51-17 on the back of Zach Wilson's 77.8% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and 359 yards passing through the air. He goes out there, hangs his nuts on these boys in Boise, on the blue turf, everything on national television, and even then, not many people are watching BYU versus Boise State at 10 p.m. on a Friday night, but this is a game that he looked truly special, man. He looks like a stud. He was out there running all over the place, dotting these boys up, and this isn't just a one-game thing. This is him coming out there, proving himself on the biggest stage that he's had all season, probably his whole career. He plays at fucking BYU. They're fucking through sheets at BYU. I don't know. This is probably why they played 8 games. They have no COVID. It's because there's not really any parties at BYU. It's a boring school. No one really cares about it for football. But Zach Wilson is leading. They're number 9 in the nation right now. Zach Wilson's leading this team in a game that's supposed to be close. They're only 3-point favorites against BYU. They blow him at 51-17, and he's been doing this all season. Right now, in terms of passing stats, he's top 5 in passing yards, completion percentage, passing touchdowns, and quarterback rating. And now you could just say, oh, he's in an air raid. But BYU, here's the thing. It's not an air raid. It's not like a guy at SMU or Houston, like a Casey Keenum, just airing it out all the time. This is BYU. This is a kind of like a pro-style offense, a little bit of spread, but it's not a traditional air raid. He's outside the top 10 in pass attempts despite being top 5 in those stats. And the reason is he's efficient, and the dude's just a playmaker. There's one play in particular I was watching, and he drops back, he makes his first read to the right, then he's kind of scrambling a little bit, he looks over, he's making his reads, then he gets chased by the edge, he rolls out of the pocket all the way to his right side, he rolls out, he finds a receiver down the field, and dots it like 45 yards on the field right at the sideline. That's a throw that I've only seen a guy like Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes make. Elite arm talent and elite getting outside the pocket, scrambling skills. The guy, he makes plays, he makes it look easy. He has great feet. He's super mobile as a quarterback. He's not insanely fast. He'll probably run like a 4.7, 4.8, kind of like the same mobility as a guy like Joe Burrow. But the thing is, it's not just mobility his mobility allows him to get out of the pocket, but it also allows him to get loose and make plays. He's also good at rushing. He leads the NCAA in rushing touchdowns among all quarterbacks with 8. And I just love what I've seen so far from him. Like I said, he's gone crazy on the season. He has like 21 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 2,500 passing yards. The guy's lighting it up this season, and that's just 21 passing touchdowns. Then you have the 8 rushing touchdowns. He's lighting it up this season, and I love what he does as a quarterback. And he has the drip. He's got like this fucking Nike headband. He's one of those guys. If this wasn't a draft class that has a fucking Trevor Lawrence, that has a Justin Fields, he would be at the top of the draft class. He'd sneak up on us like a Joe Burrow did last year. Joe Burrow, remember in those first 4 weeks when LSU was just starting to get rolling, Joe Burrow, it was a question, is he going to be a late first, an early second? Zach Wilson's in that same range, and I think that he would be a first overall pick in another draft class, but I do like his skill set. I don't think that he is, like I would say that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are up there with an Andrew Luck type, a Cam Newton, you know what I mean? Like bulletproof, can't miss prospects like a Peyton Manning, John Elway. But I'd say this guy, he's up there with like a Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, everything like that. And I think that his game is somewhere between a Joe Burrow and Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to sit in the pocket. He has a quick release, but then he's also athletic enough, like a Joe Burrow. He's like an athlete. He's somewhere between Jimmy Garoppolo and Joe Burrow. Jimmy Garoppolo's going to sit in the pocket, quick release, get it to the guy he needs to. But then Joe Burrow is going to get out of the pocket. He's going to rush for touchdowns, and that's the playmaking ability that a Zach Wilson has. And like I said, he's probably not going to go first overall, even though I think his stock is really shooting up. I think the scouts and NFL draft media knows where his stock is heading, knows that he's heading towards that top 5, top 10 range. It's just we're going to catch up eventually, and I want to be the first one to tell you guys. Like I said, it's going to be Lawrence and Fields at the top, but then it was looking like Trey Lance, the guy out of North Dakota State. But I think there's a real conversation where I think now it's going to be that top tier where it's Lawrence and Fields. Then you have a next tier that's going to be Lance, Kyle Trask out of Florida, and then Zach Wilson. And for me, I think that where Trey Lance was going to go like 5 to like 12 range, I think now that's Wilson. And it's too early to say where Wilson ranks in that tier, but I think that he's proven himself that he's in that tier. And now he's only 8 games into his junior season, so we don't know where that's going to end up. But I think he has a real case to beat out Trey Lance. He could be a top 5 pick in the NFL. I'm really high on this kid. I'd say now the gap between him and Lance is much narrower through 8 games of this season than it was before the season. Trey Lance, he only played that one game. It was like a showcase game. Didn't look great. So I think that there's going to be a real conversation for these last 3 quarterbacks between Trask, Lance, and Wilson. And I think in that argument, we're going to see this might be one of the best quarterback classes we've seen in some time, because I truly do think that Trey Lance is a great quarterback. I think that Zach Wilson's a great quarterback, and then we have those 2 generational talent quarterbacks. So this is a draft where if your team needs a quarterback, you got to pray that you're drafting one. This is a great year for the Jaguars. This is a great year for my Jets. Hopefully we get that first overall pick. We get Lawrence. But now I see a guy like Wilson. I don't even mind the idea of trading back and acquiring more picks and getting a guy like Zach Wilson around pick 10. I think that these are great QBs. I think we're going to have another historic draft class like the one with Josh Allen, Darnold, Baker, and all those guys where we see like 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. This is a stacked quarterback class, and one of the guys I really like moving up is Zach Wilson. Now, as we look past the NFL draft, we got some exciting news for the NBA draft. The NBA draft, I didn't even know when the fuck it was going to be. It kind of snuck up on me. But that's because the NBA, because of the COVID season, they had to figure out when they're going to get that starting date, and they finally decided on December 22nd. I don't really know what was taking so long. But, they have to agree on those kinds of things, vote and shit. And now the NBA draft is going to be on the 18th, 6 days from now. And I'm super excited to talk about it. And if you guys show love on the back half of this video, you show love for this NBA draft content, NBA content, I'll be sure it'll be a squeeze, but I'll make sure I get like a video or 2 more on the NBA draft, maybe like a mock draft video. If you guys would fuck with an NBA mock draft video, let me know in the comments down below. I'll get that out to you guys before the NBA draft on Wednesday. If I was to narrow down on one thing in this NBA draft that I'm most excited for, it's that Lamelo ball. And it's not only LaMelo Ball, but it's whether or not I think he should be the first overall pick, because I think that's something that's hotly debated right now. I think you have Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, Killian Hayes, and then you have LaMelo Ball. And everybody kind of has their own take on who should be picked first. By the way, though, Killian Hayes, somebody getting a lot of hype right now. And I'm seeing him at, I think he was at plus 10,000 on DraftKings. I think he's plus 4,000 some other places. That's a guy, I just put $2.50 to win $100 on him to win the first overall pick. That's a guy, if you have a sports book that you go to, look for the futures on who's going to be the first overall pick. Put a small little bet on Killian Hayes. I'm telling you, there's a main three between Wiseman, Edwards, and LaMelo Ball. But I'm telling you that next guy, Killian Hayes, and I think a lot of people are going to be kind of infatuated with what Luka Doncic just did. You know, the overseas drip guy comes over, plays like a little bit European ball. People are going to want that next Luka Doncic. This guy, Killian Hayes, he's a guard. They're going to want to pick him. He's an option first overall, whereas a lot of sportsbooks, I think they haven't caught up with that buzz yet. He's the guy over at the Ringer. They have him number 1 overall on their big board. So he's somebody who's in that conversation where sportsbooks aren't really talking about it. But back to the subject matter, we have LaMelo Ball. And this is a guy I truly think is going to be a star, all-star, a guy with first-team All-NBA potential. I think that he really does have the potential to be something great. I'm the same age as LaMelo Ball. I grew up watching him. I've been watching him since he was at Chino Hills with Lonzo Ball, and he's been doing crazy. He's been doing ignorant shit his whole career. He's been he points to the logo, fucking pulls up from half court. They demolished Matter Day, their Lonzo Ball senior year. They have so many moments that I remember. That season at Chino Hills. Say what you want, but there's something to LaMelo Ball being on that team, being around that greatness. Remember, Lonzo Ball, LiAngelo Ball, not only those two, but you had Onyeka Okongwu as their big man. This is a guy who's in the same conversation for a top 7, top 10 player. They were both the same age playing high school ball for Chino Hills. And I think that the same way that Onyeka Okongwu benefited from playing 18-year-olds, 4- and 5-star recruits in that Chino Hills circuit, and then doing the same thing in college. I think the same thing you can say about LaMelo. Since he was in 8th grade, remember, he moves up a grade to play with his brothers, and they're not just playing Chino Hill. They're not just playing their local high school who has white boys that can't do shit. They're playing at a national level, playing against teams like Matter Day, playing against teams like Oak Hill. They're playing against the best of the best. So he's been playing against 18-year-olds, 4- and 5-star recruits since he was 13. He moved up from 8th grade to play as a freshman, and it's a crazy path to the NBA. And I think the only reason he's being slept on right now, I think it's something people are loving to hate on this guy LaMelo Ball. And I think the only reason is because of this crazy path he's had. You know, he's a little brother of Lonzo Ball. He's a part of this crazy Ball family. Even though LeVar has kind of distanced himself from Lonzo, I think he'll do the same thing with LaMelo. Anybody preaching a narrative about LeVar Ball being a reason why you shouldn't draft LaMelo Ball is out of their mind. Just if he says that, you should just distance yourself from that person. The thing is about LaMelo Ball's situation and being a part of that family is that the NCAA was never an option. He was making too much money from the TV show, from the Big Baller brand. As I said, Lonzo's distanced himself. He's not even associated with the Ball brand anymore. He wears his own shoes and shit from I want to say he's partnered with maybe Puma or some shit. If LaMelo Ball could have just been the oldest brother and followed in Lonzo's footsteps, he would have gone to UCLA. He would have balled out, and he'd be a lock for a first overall pick in what's a pretty weak class. Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman. There's no Zion Williamson in this class. There's no LeBron James. This is a class that's a little bit weaker than usual, but this is where you can find studs. A class that was supposed to be weaker than usual was Lonzo's class. And you had Jason Tatum. There's studs to be found even in a weaker draft class, and I think that's what LaMelo Ball is going to be. I believe he's going to be first overall pick, but I don't think that's where he's going to go. I think he's going to go 2 or 3, and I think he's going to end up as the Jason Tatum of his draft class, the Luka Doncic and Trae Young. Remember, Ayton and Bagley go, and then it's Trae Young, Luka Doncic, those kind of guys. I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Warriors might get too obsessed with the big man and James Wiseman. I think a guy like Killian Hayes or Anthony Edwards would go first overall. And I think Anthony Edwards is cool in his own right, but LaMelo Ball to me is the highest ceiling. And purely based on that is why I would draft. His winding path, he has such a crazy path to where he is right now. He played at Chino Hills, then Lithuania, the JBA. He goes back to high school, plays a year at Spire. Then he plays for the Illawarra Hawks and the NBA and NBL in Australia. And for the traditional route would have probably helped his main downfall the most. His shot right now is his biggest downfall. And the thing is, he only shot 25% in his 12 games in the JBL, and that's the thing. Most people are going to point at his shot percentage. They're going to say, "Oh, he only shot 25% in a league with grown men." Here's the thing: the only 2 reasons why his shot is bad is because he has bad shot selection and bad shot mechanics. And I think that would have been solved at the end had he gone to college. Remember, LaMelo hasn't had a stable coach. He hasn't had a coach for longer than like 3 or 4 months that can sit him down and tell him, yo, like fucking stop doing that. That's what he needs. He needs a stern coach that tells him you got to stop fucking taking shots. Because I'll be honest, from a pure basketball perspective, he should stop chucking up those contested shots from deep three, and that's what's affecting the shot percentage. If he was just a spot up shooter, he shot threes in the gym, I guarantee that it wouldn't be league bottom. He has a fine shot. It's that he takes poor shots, he takes contested shots, he takes deep shots. When you're playing overseas, when you're playing in the JBA, you're playing against people that you believe you're better than, especially in the NBL. A guy that's saying, oh, I'm going to be in the NBA next season, I'm only just going to fuck around in this league to get looks. This is a guy, he doesn't listen to his coaches, and it's not his fault. If he had just gone through the traditional way, the only reason he pulls out of Chino Hills is because they told him he couldn't play in the NCAA. So then there was no point. He was going to pull out, focus on the NBA. He goes 4 years at Chino Hills, does this thing. He goes to UCLA for a year, does this thing. I guarantee that his shot selection gets better, because the problem is that when you play against players that you think you're better than in an NBL and a JBA, you're going to start playing. It becomes LA Fitness ball. He's just going to muscle his way around, take whatever shots he wants. He's going to get his looks. He's going to go out there and play like a pickup game. It's not so much basketball when it comes to his shot selection. So it hurts his shot selection. And the thing is while that's a red flag for right now, I actually like that he does that. He believes in himself. He wants the ball. He wants to shoot. And I think that's why he's better than Lonzo Ball, because he believes that he's better than the competition. He's this dog. He always wants the ball. He wants to score. He doesn't play timid. Lonzo Ball, there are times where if he's down, if he's having a bad night, he just disappears. He plays timid. And to me, I love the fact that LaMelo has that dog in him. He wants the ball. He wants to shoot. He wants to shoot the last shot. He wants to will his team when he's struggling, and that's what Lonzo Ball doesn't do. Lonzo Ball is the best player to have on your team when you're winning, when you're doing well, and I think for that he's a great second or third option down the line. But to me, LaMelo is better because he has that underdog mentality. He has that little brother mentality. He wants to prove himself to the world. He wants to take over, be not so much be the leader, but he wants to be the guy who has the ball in his hands at the end of the game. He wants it in crunch time, and that's what we want from a playmaker like LaMelo Ball. Now, just like his brother Lonzo, his jumper's a little broken. Now, like I said, the shot selection's bad, the mechanics are bad. He uses his offense a little bit when he shoots, kind of shoots like a chest pass, like fucking Sean Marion, but it's a little bit broken, but we know that in the NBA it's an easy fix, especially with Lonzo. Whoever Lonzo got at his coach, he can easily get to LaMelo Ball. I'm sure that they're still boys, they're still homies, and it's an easy fix. Lonzo Ball's shot was way worse. He was shooting from fucking across the chin at the opposite ear, shooting that way. It was to the point where he couldn't even step back to the right because he would just fucking chuck it right into people. That completely went away this season. He went from 30.5% from three as a rookie to 37.5% this last year. And that's on shooting 5 to 6 threes a night. LaMelo Ball, he's going to do the same thing. And on top of that, his shot selection is going to improve. He's going to have an NBA coach, and not just an NBA coach, but he's going to have the veterans in that locker room. I guarantee you, he goes to a team that has the veterans in the locker room, like a fucking, I can't even, like a Taj Gibson type, you know what I mean? Like a Chris Paul. There's going to be players on the team where they're going to see enough of LaMelo Ball doing that bullshit, and they're going to tell him, yo, cut that shit out. Especially if he goes to one of these good teams like the Warriors or the Timberwolves, guys that have veterans already, like a D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, a Steph Curry. They'll all guide him in his shot selection. My favorite part for him to go to, or favorite team, would easily be Golden State. He goes there, Steve Kerr's going to help him with shot selection, his shot mechanics. Same thing with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. That's a great situation to go to because that's what he needs to work on, his shot selection, and he needs to work on the actual form of his shot. Now, something else people love to tear down about LaMelo Ball is going to be his defense, but I'm not even slightly worried about defense. He's a 6'7" guard, and he's going to have, let's say he takes out between the two opposing guards, or 1 through 3. He just takes out the one that's the shittiest. He's 6'7", he's long. He's going to be at the very least below average. And then you have guys like Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Devin Booker, all struggle on defense, below average players on defense, still make great impacts on their team, and they're all still young. As you grow older, you focus on defense a little bit more. That'll come with time. He already has the game the basketball IQ, but you can look at his broken tools all you want. But now I've gotten all this shitty stuff out of the way. We're doing this Eminem 8 Mile style. We'll get all the flaws out of the way. He's a bad shooter. He takes bad shots. His shot selection is fucked up. His shooting mechanics are fucked up. And he's not good on defense. But what he is he's an all-star level player. He's 6'7". He's a point guard with a 6'10" wingspan. A 6'7" point guard with a 6'10" wingspan, with a shot like LaMelo and with the handles like LaMelo. He's going to be a problem in the league. He's only 183 pounds, But like Lonzo did, he's gonna beef the fuck up. LeVar Ball's a football player. He has those genes where he's only like 18, 19 right now. Like I said, he got held back, or no, he didn't get held back. He got pushed a grade forward, so he's gonna bulk up. I guarantee the same way that Lonzo did. It's such a benefit having your older brother in the NBA, because all the secrets that Lonzo has learned over time, LaMelo's gonna learn them almost instantly if he doesn't know them already. Now, the thing about LaMelo Ball that people don't understand, his game is so fluid and so natural when he's not being an idiot. He makes those Harlem Globetrotter like fucking Kyrie Irving type passes, and I think that's honestly not a terrible part to his game, because he has such a feel for the game that he gets drippy with it, and that's honestly what his game allows. His handles and his passings it's just at a different level than the people he was playing in the JBL. I watched the highlights. I watched a Frankie Vision highlight game of just him playing one game, and he looks so fluid on the floor. His handles and passing are next level. He passes like Lonzo, and he has handles like a Kyrie Irving with the stop and go, his hesitation moves. He has everything. He gets to the line, or he doesn't get to the line, but he gets to the rim, and he's finishing with both hands. He's finishing through contact with floaters. He gets tricky underneath the rim. So even when he doesn't have shooting right off the bat, his playmaking ability and his handles are insane. His passing is so good. I would even say Lonzo Ball, to me, is one of the best passes I've ever seen. He led the NCAA in assists during his freshman season. He's a great passer, but LaMelo Ball might even be better. LaMelo Ball, he's making the same full court heaves, and it's like he has eyes in the back of the head. He has extremely high basketball IQ, and for a guy that you would think is kind of on the dumber side, I know LaMelo Ball in interviews, he is kind of on the dumber side. He kind of jokes around and stuff, but the guy, he knows basketball in terms of spacing, finding his teammates open, running the pick and roll offense, and that's where I think that he has promise. He finds passes everywhere, and these aren't just things that you see on film. These are things that you're seeing on the stat sheet. He led the NBL, which is an Australian basketball league. It's not quite what the EuroLeague is, but it's not as shitty as the guys like playing bullshit out there in like Romania and like Beijing and shit like that. It's probably like a step below that. The NBL is pretty legit. It has guys like Melo Trimble in that league, and RJ Hampton was in that league. He's going to be something that goes into the draft this year too. And what I saw, or what the stats show, is that he averages 6.8 assists per game, second in the NBL, and he only averaged 2.5 turnovers per game. This gives him a 2.6 assist per turnover ratio, and that's what you want to see. Even though he's being flashy, he's being drippy with it, he's not turning the ball over too much in comparison to his turnovers. For comparison, LeBron James had a 2.5 assists per turnover last season, which is on pace with what LaMelo did overseas. Now, with all that said, he's 6'7". He can pass like a point guard. Or he passes like a point guard. He's going to play point guard at the next level, or at least a combo guard. He can play the 1 or 2. And the reason, the thing that makes him so special, he can play the 1 or 2 because he can shot create like a 2, and he can pass like a 1. But the thing is that he can play the 1 through 4 in the modern NBA, where he can play on the wing, or he can even play the stretch 4 because of his rebounding. He averaged 17, 7.6, and 6.8 in the JBL, or in the NBL, and he averaged 7.6 rebounds per game playing as a point guard in that league. That's crucial. You'll see him. He gives effort. He boxes out. He fights for every rebound. This is not a lazy player. The narrative is that he's a lazy player. He chucks up random shots. Him being lazy and him having low basketball IQ only goes as far as the bad shot selection. Now, what this playmaking and this rebounding does is he already averages 17, 7.6, and 6.8 per night, 17 points per game. It is a bit inefficient because he doesn't shoot too well, but that's gonna become better in the NBA. But what it is that he's a triple threat. He's a triple double threat at the age of 19 in a grown man's league in the NBL. In only like his first month in this new league, he puts up 32, 11, and 13, and he comes out the next game after becoming the youngest player to ever record a triple-double in the NBL, and he puts up 25, 12, and 10 to become the first ever player to drop consecutive triple-doubles in the NBL. Like I said, this is a pro league. This is grown men playing basketball, and he is out there dropping 30 bombs with triple-doubles on them. And I'm telling you that it's only a matter of time before we see him do that in the NBA. His talent, it's undeniable. No matter how inefficient his scoring in, like I said, he has great handles. He can finish through contact with both hands. He has a great feel for the game. I love the way he passes the ball. And because of all of these factors, him being 6'7" with a 6'10" wingspan, if he refines his shooting form and he refines his shot selection, those shot creating shots, those moving shots, they might be good. A guy, he has the moves down where he does those step back threes, and he has all the tools. And that's what I'm saying. In this draft class, I'm shooting for the stars. I'm shooting for the ceiling, and that's what we're getting in LaMelo Ball. This is a guy where it's relatively weak. He's a 6'7" point guard, can play the 1 through 4, and he's my number 1 in this draft class. I truly do think that his ceiling is somewhere like a Luka Doncic. he's somewhere between Luka Doncic and Lonzo Ball. Now, I know that a lot of you guys are going to be mad at the Luka Doncic comparison and think that it's because he just went off in the bubble. And the thing about Luka Doncic, he came out as an oversized combo guard that didn't shoot a good three. He only shot 28% from three over in the EuroLeague before he came, and he struggled to shoot over 31% from three in the NBA. He's a guy who's going to kill you with handles, kill you inside with moves. He's a great passer, a great rebounder for a guard. And when I describe what Luka Doncic does for his team, it's a lot of the same of what Lamelo does for his team with more street ball Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving vibe. So, like I said, he's only going to go as far as his mind will let him, but he's going to be, he has the tools to be special in the NBA. All right, to keep it a buck with you guys, I'm sweating from that fucking Lamelo Ball take. This has been a fun episode to make. If you've made it all the way to the end, 30, 40 minutes plus, and me and you are looking at each other right now, there's no reason you don't go down below and subscribe, leave a like, comment. Let me know how your day went. Let me know how you felt about the episode. You think I could keep on doing NBA content, NCAA football content? Let me know how you feel about the episode. Any recommendations? I've been feeling a lot of love from you guys in the comments. You guys have been showing a lot of support on these videos. I love you guys for that, man. I'm trying to really grow this channel, grow this community with you guys. This is a show that I really feel passionate about, that I really love. I really love doing this for you guys. I hope those of you out there that can't watch are listening to it. I do have the audio version down below. This podcast is out on Spotify and Apple Music. I have both of those under the links, under the description in every single video. So if you're watching even just a 10-minute video of mine, I have the link to the audio versions on the podcast below every video. So this is like a longer episode. If you want to listen to these in the car, like, this isn't a video that I expect everybody to sit down and watch. But I have fun making it, and as always, get to me in the comments. If you can't get to me there, on Twitter, my DMs are always open, @RonStewart_. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.